required by law. Welcome, everybody. Dr. Dupree, I will turn the meeting to you.
Thank you, Mrs. James. As you know, our first item on the agenda this evening is the Management Oversight Report from the Curriculum and Instruction Department. I'm not sure why Dr. Hill has 4 enormous binders in her lap, but she is going to lead that effort this evening along with the executive directors in that department. And so our focus, as you know, the board has policy whereby multiple times each year they heard management oversight reports. We started that last month with our construction and design department, and tonight we're going to get to the heart of our work as an organization in the C&I division. The intent of tonight's report is not really to go deep in every single area, but per the board's guidance is to really discuss the organization, the structure, and how the various departments within C&I work together to support learning in our schools. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Dr. Phyllis Hill, our Chief Academic Officer, to guide that discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Dupree. We worked very hard on that resource notebook, so I wanted to be sure that if someone referred to it tonight, you could flip toward that section. Good evening, Ms. James. Good evening, Dr. Dupree, and members of the board. We're pleased to be with you tonight. Tonight we'll be looking at 3 major departments in our school organization: the Department of School Leadership, the Department of Curriculum and Instruction, and the Department of Special and Federal Programs. With me tonight, Dr. Garcia and Jennifer Carabine to present an overview of their respective departments. I want to begin tonight by saying certainly we have all, including the subgroups and other departments under each of curriculum and instruction and special and federal programs, 11 departments. So we didn't bring our pajamas tonight. It's definitely going to be a broad overview. But I think you want to know who's on the bus, in which seat, what are they doing, and how do we know that they're doing it. And so that's kind of the cut that we'll be taking tonight. Each of the departments have accomplished a lot independently, but I want to emphasize that we have truly worked toward a collaborative and interdependent culture so that we do not work in silos and we support each other. We not only inform each other of our work, but we work together. And I think that's important because if instruction is planned and it is not followed through by the Department of School Leadership for implementation, the best laid plans may not be implemented. So I want to really stress that that is a theme that you'll hear tonight, and it isn't just a theme that we talk about, it's a theme that we strive to live. Tonight you'll see some evidence where we grow and glow, and some evidence where we need to grow. And that's, I guess, job security. We haven't finished our work yet. We are continuing to work and to improve. We have a very high-performing district. We're very proud of it, but we are always looking toward improvement. Our work is aligned to your goals, and we want to stress that we don't just take off in random directions, and tonight's presentation will be aligned to these goals. And as we strive to provide a quality education for our 72,000 plus students, we know that we are charged with making sure that the vision and the mission that this district has set forth is carried through. And with that, I would like for you to look at your binder, and we'll be looking at the different departments, and I want to show you. It looks like a lot of tabs, but it's a lot of information. If you'll notice going down the side, the Department of Curriculum and Instruction is behind the white tab, and all of the departments that fall under the Curriculum and Instruction umbrella are down the side. The Department of Federal and Special Programs is under the green tab, and that same format follows. And then the Department of School Leadership is the blue tab, and because 72 schools fall under that department, we don't have 72 sub-tabs. You just know that, and we'll talk about feeder patterns. If you turn your notebook vertically, and we follow this same format throughout, we have each department will have an organizational chart, roles and responsibilities, essential functions, and exhibits. And that's way too much information to go into depth about, but I wanted tonight for you to realize that you would have this resource both for this evening and for your future questions or references. As we move on to the Curriculum and Instruction Department, you'll notice that under your Introduction tab, I have the various organizational charts. You'll see, beginning with the Chief Academic Officer, and if you look at the extreme left, you'll see the Assistant Superintendents under the Department of School Leadership. Then the Executive Director of Federal and Special Programs under Dr. Garcia, and all of the areas that fall under her. Executive Director of Curriculum and Instruction with Ms. Carabine, and the various departments that fall under her supervision. Then looking more carefully, the next organizational chart is Curriculum and Instruction, and you can very quickly see who the directors are and then who their direct reports are. I know very often you want to know who does that, who is in charge of that, who oversees a particular area of curriculum and instruction. So I think the thing that might differentiate these organizational charts from some of the previous ones you have is they have names on them, so you know who's directing that effort. Then moving on, we have the Department of Federal and Special Programs. The same is true with that organizational chart, and you have Dr. Garcia's department and her different areas and direct reports, and we have names provided for you there. In addition to having the organizational chart for the Department of School Leadership, we have the feeder patterns that fall under each of the assistant superintendents. And I know frequently I'll get a question, well, which assistant superintendent supervises that school? Or which feeder pattern is that elementary school in? And so this provides both elements of that information for your convenience. And now we'll begin with curriculum instruction, and Ms. Carabine will give you an overview of her department.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. Good evening, everyone. As previously stated, in the curriculum and instruction department, there are 6 areas, and I'm going to go through each one. And tonight I will highlight some of the essential functions and the major projects within each department. Knowing that we're limited by time constraints, we've included much more information in that comprehensive binder, and we're certainly just a phone call or an email away if you have questions in the future. Okay. Here, quick. Okay. We'll start off with curriculum instruction. The purpose. Why does this department even exist? As you know from the district audit, curriculum instruction department is critical for the success of our students in the district. And as previously explained, the auditors, when they first came in and conducted our audit, it was referred to as the curriculum. And then when they stepped back from it, they said, this is so comprehensive, we'll refer to it as the district audit from here out. And that's because every department in the district, as well as all of our campuses, are linked to the design and delivery of curriculum. So hence the reason we're so comprehensive. A high-level overview tonight includes the development and revision of curriculum for pre-K through 12 for all content areas. I'll talk a little bit about instruction, which includes the delivery of instruction, instructional strategies, and differentiated instruction. We'll talk about assessment and how we develop assessment instruments to measure assessment and achievement, which will inform our instruction, intervention, and enrichment, which also under assessments, we use the state assessments, AP assessments, college entrance exams are also used to inform our instruction. But one of the most critical roles in the Curriculum Instruction Division is to monitor the implementation of curriculum and the delivery of instruction. Additionally, we support the teachers and all of our instructional leaders with the evaluation and measurement of the delivery of curriculum and our instructional resources and programs. It's important that we have ongoing support for all of the campuses regarding the redirection or reinforcement or even termination of programs that may not meet the needs of our students. Okay. I'm going to start with the first department in the division, which is CTE. As I share a high-level overview of each of the departments in curriculum instruction, please know that our division touches all 72,000 plus students. To demonstrate the direct support, I'd like to quantify with these ratios. For example, the CTE department serves 18,597 students with 158 CTE teachers. Some of the, in the essential function, I won't read it all to you, but I want you to take note of, to me, the key attribute in this essential function, besides preparing our students for a future employment and/or post-secondary education, is to teach the adaptive and transferable skills. What research tells us today is that students in our schools may actually change careers, not jobs, but careers on several occasions. So we know how important it is for them to be adaptive and be able to transfer their skills from one job or one career to the other. Under the major projects, I'll walk you through each of the major bullets. Regarding curriculum development, CTE is developing curriculum which meets our state requirements and is aligned with industry needs. Curriculum development is driven by our TEKS changes that are forthcoming in 2016, and we also are considering the need to increase our advanced coursework opportunities. Regarding industry certifications, we're pleased to report that last year students earned more than 3,000 industry certifications in the CTE programs. Historically, the CTE courses varied from campus to campus and at times did not offer students the opportunity to take upper-level coursework. But by more clearly defining coherent sequence pathways, in answer to House Bill 5, the CTE department is going to be better prepared to increase the advanced level coursework at all of our high schools, which will increase the number of industry certifications. Another bullet is the CTE asset inventory. This is a real necessity. So this December and January, we're going to provide a complete inventory which will determine future purchases for the CTE programs. Project Lead the Way, thankfully, last year, as you know, the board approved the coursework and implementation of Project Lead the Way, our Gateways to Technology program in middle school. This program offers an introduction to the components of engineering, and expansion of Project Lead the Way is currently under review. Regarding EduThings, CTE PEIMS coding and our student industry certifications are all tied to funding sources. In order to avoid any coding errors and track our industry certifications, EduThings, which is a web-based program, was purchased recently, and through the implementation of EduThings, we will have continuous monitoring of our CTE enrollment, the House Bill 5 pathway completion rates, and our industry certification attempts and passing rates. And lastly, under teacher development, CTE is now conducting campus walkthrough observations, and they're completing campus support documentation. The data that we collect from these walkthrough observations will play a critical role in our future development of our professional development and support for each of our teachers and our programs. The second area that I'd like to highlight tonight is curriculum and instruction, the elementary department, which serves all of our pre-K through fifth grade students. A key phrase for elementary and secondary under the curriculum and instruction umbrella is to support and monitor the development of an academic foundation through curriculum, instruction, and assessment. This aligns completely with your board policy, e.g. local, regarding the written, taught, tested curriculum. To establish the ratio of the elementary department, please know that our elementary curriculum team serves 32,318 elementary students and 2,058 elementary teachers. I will elaborate on some of their major projects. Regarding curriculum and assessments, please know that the response to the district audit findings are ongoing, and I'm actually going to provide a quarterly update to you in December. So this report will give you more comprehensive status reports and details. However, please know that the writing and revision of curriculum and assessments are always ongoing. Particular emphasis has been placed recently on elementary math, because as we've shared with you previously, the state did a complete math revision for TEKS K through 5. So this has been rewritten, and everything's been uploaded in PCG, where we house our curriculum, and the teachers have full access to the changes. Regarding professional development, this is a lot of what we do in our departments to ensure that we give the teachers the support needed to be successful. The elementary curriculum team provided 461 PD classes for teachers last summer, compared to only 121 courses offered previously in the summer of 2013. 137 of those PD courses were dedicated to the new curriculum and our new resource integration. We felt it was essential to prepare them to embrace our newly adopted resources as well as the TEKS revision. Job-embedded professional development continues throughout the year as we support teachers in their classroom. We provide cluster group meetings, and we build capacity with their specialists on the campus, as well as at all of our principals' meetings to develop capacity with our instructional leadership team. Regarding the instructional resource adoption, as we've been sharing, we have adopted a new K-5 math and science resource, and we've rolled out professional development and full implementation and support for our teachers. We're currently planning for the K-5 social studies resource adoption for the 15-16 school year. Another big major project for the elementary department is the pre-K transition. As you know, with the reorganization, pre-K transitioned from the special programs department to the curriculum and instruction department. And we're very pleased to work with this as we've been busy writing curriculum, determining assessments, providing resources, and supporting, monitoring, and evaluating instruction. The ultimate goal of our pre-K program is to align seamlessly with the primary instruction in kindergarten and first grade in particular. Finally, the C&I team in elementary largely are helping teachers deploy out to campuses each day to model instruction, provide feedback to teachers, assist with lesson development, and support the implementation of the written, taught, tested curriculum. Okay, next I'd like to feature the secondary area of curriculum and instruction. And as you note, the essential function remains the same and aligns to elementary as we reinforce this written, taught, tested curriculum. To establish the ratio for secondary, this department serves 39,869 secondary students with 1,615 teachers. And regarding the major projects underway for curriculum in secondary, as shared with the elementary, we are developing and revising curriculum and assessments, especially in response to the district audit. Regarding the math, as we had shared previously with you, grades 6 through 12 will complete a 2-year process of implementing our new TEKS that's led to a complete rewrite of curriculum for all of these courses. Professional development is also ongoing this year, and as with elementary, we're very pleased that we increased the number of professional development courses to 390 last summer from June to August of 2014. By the end of May 2015, new resources will have been adopted for K through 12 math, K through 12 science, K through 12 social studies, K through 12 fine arts, and K through 12 technology applications. Although we've experienced some lags in deploying some of our print and online resources for some of these programs, they are all being integrated into the district's curriculum, and they are providing much needed updates for some of our out-of-date and obsolete textbook area in many of these areas. Another big accomplishment and an ongoing major project for us is that we've upgraded our online learning lab capacity for students by implementing our OLab, which is our online learning lab. And as you know, you approved Edgenuity for us last year as our online curriculum. High school students now have more opportunities to take courses to recover credit and to gain original credit in order to satisfy graduation requirements. We currently have over 900 students utilizing Edgenuity on a daily basis right now. And with the positions like the new coordinators for advanced academics, health, and PE, we're able to focus our attention on programs that can now grow with improved curriculum, professional support, and increased resources. And finally, as with elementary, the helping teachers and coordinators are instrumental in the success of the development and the revision of all of our curriculum and assessments, the implementation of effective instruction, professional development, and continuous monitoring and evaluation. All right, the next department for curriculum instruction that I would like to highlight is our digital learning department. The key word that stands out for me in the essential function is the word integration. Because with technology, it should be viewed as another tool to enhance instruction, not something that should occur in isolation. The ratio for digital learning right now is that they serve all 72,000 students with over 4,500 teachers. Their major projects include curriculum, lessons, and professional development, and our goal is to empower them with the necessary resources and skills for the seamless use of technology in all of their classrooms. Regarding the internet safety mandates, there's federal compliance with the Federal Communications Commission, also known as the FCC, which mandates the requirements for the Children's Internet Protection Act, which we refer to as SIPA. The Digital Learning Department actually has to create internet safety curriculum, and we house it in PCG, and we collaborate with our campuses to ensure that students receive instruction in all of these areas. We also have an assessment that falls under the Digital Learning Department, which is our Technology Literacy Assessment. It's an online assessment that measures the mastery of technology application TEKS for all of our students in grades 5 and 8. Fortunately, both our 5th and 8th graders have historically scored above the national average on our Technology Literacy Assessment. The Fort Bend ISD Classroom Technology Plan, we're involved in a partnership with Mr. Pham, and I believe there's an RFP that's in legal right now that's moving through the process. This includes a strategic educational technology plan. This will provide us with the information to illustrate a path towards our Fort Bend ISD goals and visions in technology. It's intended to align with the goals outlined by the state while meeting our Fort Bend ISD needs and objectives. So we'll work closely with Mr. Pham regarding the instructional side of the House of Technology. And finally, our campus library collections seek to balance print and our digital resources to meet the needs of all of our students across curricular areas and grade levels. Administrative professional resources are also available in multiple formats. This actually supports our students and staff with the ability to create and consume content in video format. Sorry, I have the most in mind, so bear with me. Two more to go in mine. The next department that I would like to feature is our Fine Arts Department. And if you'll look at the essential function, the key words in this essential function, inspire and imagination and equip, are completely aligned with the district's mission statement. The Fine Arts Department, to establish the ratio, we serve 58,871 fine arts students and 325 teachers. Regarding our bullets for the major projects, with the implementation of the new fine arts TEKS for art, dance, music, and theater in 2015-2016, the current curriculum is being revised, and new curriculum is actually being written for those courses where curriculum has not been developed yet. As we shared with you in the district audit, we had significant deficits, so Mr. Drew and his team have been working extremely hard to bring us up to speed with the curriculum. Regarding the implementation of the new TEKS, and in conjunction with Proclamation 2015, this department is also undergoing the review and selection of all of the instructional materials for over 100 K-12 fine arts classes. Something that Mr. Drew is very proud of is that all fine arts teachers attend quarterly professional learning community meetings, and in these meetings they discuss their curriculum, they plan for district events, and they promote student learning. And regarding walkthrough observations, the director, and this is new this year, the director and the coordinator of fine arts actually engage in classroom walkthroughs to gather data, measure effectiveness of their instructional practices, and to provide feedback to teachers about their job performance. They're also a huge asset and resource to the instructional leaders on the campuses, as that some of the principals may not have a background in fine arts, so they're a great resource. And finally, the department organizes and implements approximately 30 fine arts events annually. Additionally, all the UIL results for concert and sight reading contests, as well as the marching band contests, are constantly monitored and reviewed. And the department annually develops, facilitates, and documents quality professional development sessions for all the fine arts teachers. And the teachers have opportunities to attend content-specific area conferences on a rotating basis to cover their PD requirements. Finally, the last department to be featured in the Curriculum and Instruction Department includes our Gifted and Talented Department. Looking at the essential function here, the word rigorous and the phrase enriched learning opportunities are important to me because they're aligned with the state GT plan. To establish a ratio of service and support, this department serves 5,056 identified gifted and talented students and 2,400 teachers who serve the gifted and talented students. Regarding the major projects, especially curriculum development, while we're currently working to improve many areas of the GT program, please know that there will be a full program evaluation that will occur next year. We're not going to wait on the program evaluation. We want to get the work started and, of course, respond to the findings and recommendations specific to the evaluation once it's readily available. Curriculum development is underway at this time. The GT department is now collaborating with our core content coordinators to establish our next steps. And as you know, with the reorganization, Dr. Dupree transitioned the curriculum department the gifted and talented department into the curriculum and instruction department, which has been wonderful because it's more conducive for us to plan and coordinate our efforts with the core. Differentiated instruction is critical for all students, especially our gifted and talented students. Therefore, the district is already planning for professional development to include a theme of differentiated instruction for all grade levels and content areas for the next school year. We're hoping that we could possibly start as early as this January for that. The bullet that indicates Texas Performance Standards Project, this was actually an initiative that was developed in 1999 by the Texas legislator, and it guides the district with language that actually forms 3 categories that rates your district depending on where you are. So I looked specifically at the curriculum and instruction component, and there's 3 categories that you can fall into: the compliance category, which means you're meeting the basic state's mandates. There's a meets recommendation, and there's an exemplary. And we are currently in the compliance category. So of course, I've set goals for the gifted and talented department to elevate that rating to the recommended level for this school year, which is 2014-15, and then with the goal of achieving exemplary in the 2015-16 school year. The VISTA's Talent Pool initiatives, which there's more comprehensive information about all that in your binder, is an initiative that's ongoing. And we are pleased to report this initiative, it targets the minority students, especially in schools with low socioeconomic status. Oftentimes, the minority students and students of poverty are under-identified. So this pool provides opportunities for students to receive enrichment and helps them with the possibility of obtaining GT eligibility. And our accomplishment that we're celebrating today is that we've had a 50% increase in GT eligibility at our Title I schools since 2012. Regarding professional development, as with all of our other areas, it's essential to support our teachers. For all GT teachers, there's an initial 30-hour requirement and subsequent 6-hour updates for each year. That includes our counseling staff that supports GT, as well as our campus administrators. The GT department is exploring additional opportunities for more job-embedded professional development. We know it's more meaningful to go into the classroom with the teachers and support their efforts at that time. And of course, monitoring and evaluating the success of our GT program is essential. Therefore, the program evaluation that's forthcoming will be very well received. This concludes the overview of the curriculum and instruction departments. And however, as I've stated, we serve the 72,000 students in all of these 6 areas, but it's important to note that our written, taught, tested curriculum serves all of our students, including those that are receiving response to intervention, tiered intervention, all of our Section 504 students, our special education students, our English as a second language students, bilingual, and our gifted and talented students. I feel very fortunate to present tonight with Dr. Garcia and Dr. Hill, as it shows that we are a united front. We're ready to roll up our sleeves and continue the work and to ensure that we're equipping all of our students to reach their fullest potential. Thank you. I'll turn it over to Dr. Garcia.
Is this on? Yeah. Oops. Thank you. Good evening. Well, I wish to thank Ginger for a great presentation, and you'll hear some of the things that she has said sort of interface with some of the things I'm going to say, which just make us a lot stronger because we're working together towards that same effort. I will be following the same format that Ginger did. I have 4 departments, and I'll follow the same format, and I'll if you want to follow me in the slides, I'm not going to be reading them to you, but just kind of giving you an overview. And at some points, I'm going to give you information that some data information that's not on the slides, and it's not in your notebook either. But there won't be a test afterwards, so don't worry about it. I'm also very happy to be presenting with curriculum and instruction because the 4 departments that you're going to hear about tonight are really exist to support the success of student learning. So therefore, if we're about student learning, we have to be very connected to curriculum and instruction and the Department of School Leadership. We cannot exist without those 2 departments. We are connected. Thank you. Yeah. The purpose of the federal and special programs is, you'll see the words that you see there, keywords are systems thinking, research-based practices, facilitate processes, fully integrate, support services. Those are some of the keywords that we're using, and some of the ways that we use systems thinking and we integrate support services with all of the other departments in the district, and especially, as I said, curriculum instruction in the Department of School Leadership, is by first having a very close working relationship. I really have to celebrate that because this is something almost very new since Dr. Dupree came on board, that we must work together. We cannot have a don't ask, don't tell, don't share mentality. We all talk, we all share, we all exist together. So it's a very close working relationship. That is one way that we use the systems and integrated support. We have monthly shared meetings with each other, and at those meetings we bring what I call a four square, where we talk about what is working right between us and what is the evidence that shows that it's working right. Then what is not working so well in terms of initiatives and programs, and what can we do to make it better. So that's our premise. The other thing is that we've all agreed to be solution focused. We're not going to go into these meetings about blame or who's at fault, because that's counterproductive. So we go in there that we're all set in our mind is, where do we go from here? How do we make it happen? And whatever it takes. And that's what makes us quite successful, I feel. Our inter and intra departmental communication is getting much stronger, and we're becoming a very cohesive team. It's not unusual for us to just pick up the phone all the time, don't want to make any of the decisions in isolation from any of the others. We talk a lot about equity and access, and there's a lot of different areas in terms of equity and access. But in the four departments that you're going to hear in a few minutes, equity and access means equity and access to advanced academic instruction for all our children. It's not, everybody has to be in the band, everybody has to learn to play an instrument, but more of what the traditional role of public education, to give every child that leaves the strongest math foundation, science foundation, history foundation, social studies foundation, and then for them to pursue their avocation or their interest in whatever manner they wish. So equity and access is a huge focus for our division. We use a lot of data sources, as you'll hear me say in a few minutes, to determine whether we're making progress. And if you remember the presentation on the CCR district plan, we have over 60 targeted measures. So we definitely use our data sources to see if we are doing okay. Another thing we do is ensure alignment of campus goals, campus progress, and compliance with local, state, and federal government, because this department also has Title I and some other initiatives that I'll share. We're very big on leveraging community, local colleges, and agency support for our students. And we also, as Ginger said, provide extensive professional development, although we are rethinking the way that we do professional development. You'll hear me say that in a few minutes. And most importantly, we work together to support our students, and we never lose sight of that, and that any intervention or enrichment strategies will not be made in isolation from the people who really know about intervention strategies, differentiated instruction, etc., which is curriculum and instruction. Okay? So, the first program that I'm going to cover, and there's four, is the AtRisk Department. The first, this is a newly created department this year. We have a new director, and for this department, Mr. Michael Ewing. And if you notice what the function says, the key words there are not just services, but programs and services for our students with unique academic circumstances. Unique academic circumstances. And more globally, from a balcony view, we talk about narrowing the achievement gap for these students. This department encompasses initiatives such as dropout prevention, RTI, response to intervention, which you'll hear me say in a few minutes, Section 504, which is protection of our students with known disabilities. The Teen Pregnancy and Parenting Program, otherwise known as the PEP program, is another one of the initiatives. Dyslexia Services, Health Services, and Champs and Foundations, which is a program that also comes out of this department. The bullets that we have up there, the first one says, create structures and models for new at-risk department. This is a brand new department, so therefore a lot of our work during the last 10, 12 weeks has been to put in structures to support the department. And the department right now is structured in such a way that every staff member has to both lead initiatives within the department as well as collaborate with all the other people in the department to build capacity. And one of my key responsibilities is to support Mr. Ewing in every way possible so that he can lead, direct, and manage his staff effectively and reach our goals. The second bullet that you see there is deployment of summer school. And he didn't, this was not mentioned in his interview, so it was a little bit of a surprise to him when we told him that he is in charge of all our summer school initiatives for this coming year and thereafter. And he's very happy. And yes, he's happy. Or at least he hasn't told me he isn't. Our third bullet there is, it talks about Success Ed, and you've probably heard Success Ed in reference to special education. Well, Success Ed is a software system that also has a lot of tools for 504 for monitoring. All the forms can be housed there, all the minutes, all the notes, a lot of the interventions. So therefore, we immediately grabbed onto that and decided that this would be one of the tools that we would take advantage of. And I am proud to say that as of today, 150 staff members have been trained on how to use the tools in Success Ed for 504. The fourth bullet that you see there is RTI is huge, just huge. It's response to intervention, and we're having to redesign it and redeploy it in a different manner that focuses more on the student and the student needs and what can do with the students instead of letting a program drive what we were doing. We want it to be student need driven. So we're redesigning that. And who better to work with in curriculum and instruction? They are the experts on differentiated instruction. They are the experts on what we can modify. They are the experts in every aspect of what we need to do differently for kids to be successful in that regard. That's the last bullet I have. And finally, here's the little data I said I would share with you. We have this department serves 29,000 at-risk students. Over 3,504 students are provided services. 3 liaisons and 4 homebound teachers provide services to 120 teen parents. We have 1 dyslexia coordinator, 46 elementary and 4 secondary reading specialists that provide consultant services for the whole district and specifically provide services for over 800 students with dyslexia. We have 1 health services coordinator, 72 RNs, 11 LVNs, and they provide services to the entire district student body. Okay? Yeah. The next one is college and career readiness, and that's the second department that I'll highlight. On September 15th, I presented to this board our CCR 2020 plan. And so our function and mission was discussed extensively at that time with you. In December, next month, we will be bringing you some updates on our plan that will include assessments that we weren't able to cover and give you updates on college entrance assessments such as the ACT plan, PSAT, SAT, and AP at that time. On bullet number 1, our college and career plan is a work in progress. The one that I brought back on September 15th, right after that meeting, we began to work to update it because of House Bill 5 and because we were also were fully aware that we didn't have specifics on how we would support our special education population as well as other populations. So we're hard at work updating this plan. It will be reprinted with a revised date. And of course, the third thing we continue to do is collect data because we have so many targeted measures. Bullet number 2 is addressing another big major project, which is the College Career Readiness Advisors and Centers. We have 11 of them. And I have to say, 9 of the 11 returned this year. 2 of the college career advisors did not return, but we immediately hired. We had a lot of applicants. It is a great job for people who really want to work directly with kids and parents in terms of having them plan for their college, et cetera. Oh. Well, but you'll have to hold it because it makes a noise. Sorry. At least now I know how to turn it off. The first time I got it, I was in a meeting, and my superintendent looked at me and kept buzzing, and I apologized to him profusely. He said, it didn't bother me that it was ringing. It bothered me that you didn't know how to turn it off, he said. And so I know how to do that now. Okay, so let's go on to this college career readiness. We have some very strong programs in college, and we have 11 high schools, and it's like everything else. We have some very strong programs, some strong delivery, but we also have some that are not as strong. So we are working to provide more direction and guidance because our goal is really to have all 11 programs to scale. Bullet number 3 talks about the comprehensive guidance, the development of a comprehensive guidance plan for pre-K through 12. And it's been in existence for quite a few years in the state of Texas since the early 90s. But we don't have one that we can say we're proud of. We have smatterings of what we do for kids. So what we did was we began by developing a new job description for all our counselors and an evaluative tool. And this tool that evaluates the counselor, which is now completely finished, actually covers everything that counselors are supposed to do in the state of Texas and follows TA guidelines as well as legislative law of the role of the school counselor. So basically our principals won't even have to look at a job description because if it's on this evaluative tool, they do tons of it. So that's kind of the way I'm selling the tool. That's how they do it. Every counselor has been trained in it, and this month we'll be training all our principals on the tool. The other thing I have to say is that this tool took 2 years to develop, because we had a very big committee of elementary, middle, and high school counselors as well as principals, and it's been vetted with every administrator, and HR has given it its blessing, so we're good to go with that. Our 4th bullet is about AVID, Advancement via Individual Determination. It is a program that we have at 7 high schools and 5 middle schools. We have 1 district coordinator, 12 campus AVID lead teachers at each of these campuses, and 40 tutors who offer what the program calls tutorology. And the beauty of AVID is that we speak the same language as Ginger and Dr. Hill and everyone about rigorous instruction. But the difference with AVID is that we want our students, the students that are selected, which are normally first generation whose parents have never gone to college, to be able to succeed in that rigorous instruction. Our AVID vision for the future is to provide a comprehensive feeder model that focuses on supporting all students and offer it in more middle schools. When you talk about equity and access in the AVID program, that really exists at the elementary level. And let me explain why. In middle school and high school, it's a pull-out program. But at the elementary level, AVID is a program that trains teachers in the AVID instructional model, all 4th and 5th grade teachers. So that means that all 4th and 5th grade students get it. So we're looking forward to that as well, to building a system for our elementary schools. Bullet number 5 is the implementation of the House Bill 5 mandates. And you will be hearing a whole lot of that today, a little later on, but you've been hearing us talk about endorsements and credits and those things. So we're very much a big part of CTE, as well as working with Susan Vordakas to make sure that our course description guides and everything is in line, and also making sure that every one of our counselors is trained to be able to articulate what the House Bill 5 mandates are and direct students and parents. Bullet number 5, support and ongoing refinement of Naviance. With over 80,000 student logins in 3 months, we are uncovering and confronting issues that were not foreseen when we first started with the program and in our training. And we're working very hard with Naviance staff as well as registrars, college career readiness advisors. Teachers are very involved in it too because they send their letters of recommendations through the system to problem solve and find solutions. We recently, this past Friday, invited Clear Creek ISD to come and speak to our whole staff, our whole high school staff, registrars, counselors, and CCR advisors, because they've had the program for 10 years. So we wanted to know about lessons learned and how they had implemented it. And they had some great stories to tell. But what I want to say, if we put it in perspective, I know they're a lot smaller than we are. It took them about 3 years to be where we are at this point, and we just started this year. So when you bite off a lot more and a lot faster, you tend to run into a few problems. So then you've got to solve them. So we wanted to do it quickly, and that's kind of what happens. We're also, on the 18th of November, are going to bring in all our high school counselors and train them again and show them some new modules, because there's still a lot of modules they haven't learned. Bullet number 6 is probably one of my favorite things, I guess, because it's not just about getting kids into college, it's keeping them in college. And many times I think public education has a thing about, well, 80% of our kids go to college, but how many stayed, how many graduated, how many actually got a degree? That's what's really important, I think, in the minds of many parents, especially since they're paying for it. So how many years is it going to take for them to get this degree? So develop a systematic response to college preparation, admissions, attendance, and completion. We have for several years had a partnership with the National Student Clearinghouse that gathers longitudinal data on all students and where they register and how long they stay at that college and how long it takes for them to get a degree. So this year completes our 6th year of data, so now we can really look and see how many graduates per high school. As a matter of fact, it even comes individual names, which we won't share individual names. So it's very exciting for us to have this, and we're looking for a means to bring this data forth and raise the awareness, not just of our administration, but our community about our successes and maybe areas where we're not being that successful and what we can do to make sure that we get kids there. Because, college readiness is more than just getting them into college, and we also have to have family readiness, and that support is very needed for many of our students. The next program is our special education program, and key words in our essential function are collaboration with general education, implementation and monitoring of IEPs, and continuously striving to meet the unique needs of this population, and supporting all our students to the maximum ability that we can. The first bullet there is Developmental Program Evaluation Task Force, and the planning of this task force is well underway. The members of this task force have been identified, invited, and they've agreed to participate in the task force. Our timeline for meetings has been developed. Stetson and Associates has agreed to facilitate our meetings and also our focus groups. We will have focus groups to gather information from our parents. And we've also gathered all critical data to train our task force. Our task force will include regular ed teachers, special ed teachers, so that they see that they are, like the function says, work collaboratively with general education to do the best for our kids. The second bullet is redesigning our parent training program. For years, we've had a parent training program, and that's for special education parents, and it's a good program. However, we want to expand it and enhance it to an advisory committee, and we're going to ask every principal to nominate one parent of a special ed child to participate in this committee. And we will, the structure of these meetings will be a combination of half of the meeting will be training and half will be learning from the parents about what the needs are and getting input from them. There will be 4 meetings per semester, 2 for elementary and 2 for secondary. So we're very excited about this new reorganization of the advisory committee. The third bullet is another great project that we've begun this year. This is our first year to participate in Project Search, and it is a partnership with United Healthcare. And 10 of our students participate in this job site internship, and they work for them. We are one of 6 districts in the entire state that was selected to participate in this partnership with United Healthcare. So we're following the data, we're working with them and hope to expand it. Our kids just love it. They're very happy in that element. All right, my fourth bullet up there is Success Ed. You have received much information from the RFP to the deployment regarding this data system. And so where are we today with it? Just giving you an update. We are collecting a lot of data from all the users, which includes teachers, administrators, and central office administrators as well, as to how did the deployment go? Was it successful, smooth, rough? What could we have done differently? And Mr. Pham is helping us with gathering that information. Bullet number 5 is about the continuous improvement plan for the performance-based monitoring assessment system, PBMAS. And what can I tell you that you haven't already heard? So it's like that little rock in our shoe, but it's there and we continue to deal with it and work very hard to make it better. And this year we got a much better report, which I'm sure you'll be hearing about soon. Bullet number 6, professional development. Last year alone, we provided 80 different courses with 186 sessions. And this does not include training on Success Ed. This is strictly training for special education teachers. So what have we learned? We've learned that we need to do things differently. And as the beginning of the statement in that PowerPoint where I talked about what our essential function is to work collaboratively with general education, we're going to do just that. Our professional development in the future will be both special ed teachers and regular ed teachers working side by side. We're going to integrate the model because they each have something to teach each other. Their creativity, their trade, how they do things, their pedagogy, and their content. So it's very important. So we will continue doing that, but in a different format. Last, here are some interesting stats for you that I will share. It should be noted that 6.2% of our district population, or over 4,600 students, are in special education. This is much lower than the state average of 8.7% or the national average of 13%. However, one of our highest populations is students with autism. 20% of our special education students are identified as students with autism. This is double the state average of 10% and triple the national average of 7%. In turn, our special ed students identified with learning disabilities is 19%. This is almost half of the state and national numbers of students with learning disabilities at 37% and 36% respectively. So we have a unique district, a very unique district with some unique needs. And we're stepping up to the plate and taking care of these kids. I thought you would be interested in those facts. Now, the last department that I'm highlighting is special programs. Okay? And our essential functions span several departments as listed on the slide. We have the bilingual, all the English language learner problems, the McKinney-Vento Act, the Homeless Act, foster care children, and just it runs the gamut. Our major projects that you see listed up there, our major projects with the exception of the fourth bullet, develop PBMAS continuous improvement plan, are all new initiatives for this year, and we're very, very proud of them. Let me begin with social workers. A new job description tied to a new evaluation tool, the addition of 4 more social workers, and the merging of all the social workers into one department. They were split. Has allowed more flexibility in assigning them to campuses. More consistent expectations of what they're to do and what they do at every single campus. By increasing the size of the team, we are able to assign fewer campuses to each of the social workers. They too have professional learning communities where they share what they're doing and share their progress as it applies to direct services to the staff and the students. Bullet number 2, bilingual ESL program evaluation and recommendations. We are currently undergoing a program evaluation to really look closely at our bilingual education program and look regarding the advantages of early or late exit models of our bilingual students. Bullet number 3, in response to the compliance with TA Chapter 89 in terms of staffing and staff, There is a regulation that teachers who teach English language learners should be certified in ESL, but districts are allowed to submit waivers if all their teachers are not certified, and we have been submitting waivers, but we will no longer do that. We have identified 180 teachers who will be getting a very intensive review course so they can take the test and be certified. We're training them in 3 sessions of 60 each, so we're very proud of that as well. And it's not just that we want them to have a certification, but it's because it's good for kids. It's good for all kids. Bullet number 4 is develop the PBMAS Continuous Improvement Plan, and I'm not going to go into a whole lot of that. Bullet number 5, because I know you get enough of that. Bullet number 5, our immigrant population continues to grow each year, and we feel that this population would benefit from an initial enrollment in very specialized services at a center. So we are looking at a newcomer center. We have set up an exploratory committee. We've already had 1 meeting, and we're having our 2nd meeting this week to look at models from across the state on newcomer centers. And hopefully we will be bringing forth a recommendation to you in the very near future. Bullet number 6, we looked at our data and we weren't happy with our data. And so we noticed that we were testing way too many 4th and 5th grade bilingual program students in Spanish at the end of the 4th grade and at the end of the 5th grade. So what we're doing new this year is this initiative involves administering a benchmark assessment in English to determine the level of English proficiency of the students so that we can see what we need to do to get them ready to take the STAR test in English as opposed to in Spanish. So that's a great initiative. This department serves over 10,000 English language learners made up of 7,500 ESL students K through 12, over 3,000 bilingual students K through 5, and over 26,000 economically disadvantaged students, a homeless population of close to 500 students. We also serve 70 unaccompanied youth and 100 students at the Richmond Early Childhood Center, with an additional 100 served at night who are taught literacy while their parents learn English. This department also oversees 23 Title I schools, 19 elementaries, 3 middles, and 1 high school. And I hope that you've got a better idea of what these 4 departments are with this presentation. As I thought of what to bring forth, and Ginger and I talked about it, I kept thinking in my mind, the best thing to bring forth to a school board is, are they carrying their own weight? Are they doing what they need to be doing? Are they worth it? So the answer I had to answer was, if these programs didn't exist tomorrow, what might we not have? And I hope this has given you a glimpse of the support services that we have and what might happen if we didn't have them. Thank you very much. Now I'll turn it back to Dr. Hill.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia and Ms. Carabine. When we look at this slide, it gives you another look at what the Department of School Leadership does in interacting with the programs that Dr. Garcia just described. Sometimes we have board members who want to know, is that school Title I, or which schools are bilingual? Which schools have a pre-kindergarten program? So we thought you might enjoy having this view, and it also lines it up by the assistant superintendent who supervises that feeder of schools. One of the things that I wanted to point out is that while the curriculum and instruction department provides what students should learn, and special programs provides additional support to make sure that they do learn, the Department of School Leadership is what I refer to as boots on the ground, to make sure that what we plan, what we write, what we want to happen is indeed being led by campus leaders and being implemented in classrooms. And those are 2 of the essential roles when we look at the functions of our department. The Department of School Leadership hires, supports, and develops our campus principals. We meet with them, we plan jointly, we meet with them 3 times a month. The principals are called to meetings. The first one, Dr. Dupree and Dr. Whitback and Mr. Spears center around culture and collaborative culture and climate. Then we also have a focus meeting on learning, a focus on learning. And curriculum and instruction takes the lead on that meeting, but Department of School Leadership helps to plan and implement so that they see us working together. They know that what they're being taught is going to be monitored and measured. Then we have the Department of School Leadership focuses on the leadership components. And when we get into some of the projects, I'll go into some of the training we're giving them specifically. So we monitor the delivery of instruction, work in collaboration with all departments. I was looking at emails after being out of state for a little while that were coming into the Department of School Leadership. And in one day, school safety, personnel, CNI, federal programs, and PEMS all coming in one day. And so literally, everything that affects campuses is the business of the Department of School Leadership, because it's the assistant superintendent's role to make sure that all the operations, the management, and especially the instruction are taking place efficiently and effectively. In addition, we sometimes have informal complaints and formal complaints, and these 5 individuals handle those and resolve them if they're not handled at the campus level. Moving on, we have been involved in many projects recently that you were aware of last year. We had the overflow project for overcrowding at Commonwealth. We established a 5th grade center. We applied for and were granted 3 grants to put the SIM project in at Lake O, McAuliffe, and Missouri City. And having done that, now we are looking at more campus and instructional driven projects. The first one, Principals Professional Learning Communities. In our meetings that I was describing earlier, each time the principals meet, we have divided them into professional learning community groups. And a professional learning community in the business world is very similar to total quality management groups, or TQM, where principals would get together, share best practices, network about problems, learn together, and as they learn together and ask each other questions, refine their learning. So we divided them into groups because since they're arranged in vertical feeder patterns and have the same assistant superintendent, there's some alignment and communication that way. There's also some high school to high school communication, people that just naturally buddy up and communicate with each other. But sometimes we need to learn from people that are outside the group that we normally or routinely see. Sometimes I might be a Title I principal and I can learn quite a bit from a very high-performing school. There may be strategies that I'm not aware of that my students could benefit from, or an intervention at a Title I school that some struggling learners at a high-performing school could have. Not that Title I schools are not high-performing, because some of ours are very high-performing, but we need that sharing. So we have professional learning communities. In these principal professional learning communities, we call them PLCs, we model protocols when they're learning so that they have practiced that, they learn a protocol, and they can take it back, teach it to teachers, and we have teacher PLCs. And so every time they come together, we try to provide them with a different protocol. It might be a protocol on studying a professional journal article and doing that quickly and gleaning information. It might be a data study protocol. It might be a protocol for developing a common assessment. So that's one of our major projects. Another one is to monitor the implementation of the written, taught, and tested curriculum. And this ties directly with your new board policy and your theory of action with managed instruction. So with that, at this particular point in time, and that's why I wanted you to have your notebook, if you will flip to the Department of School Leadership exhibits, we've implemented what we call a TAP form, a campus snapshot. And you'll see some bar graphs behind the exhibits. It's at the very back. Did you find it? It says snapshot data for first 9 weeks on the top of the page. First, I want to explain what a TAP form is. A TAP form is literally very similar to the video games that you see your children playing on iPads. It has buttons on the iPad, and you can literally touch. Yes, this is here, this is, I observed this. And as the assistant superintendents are out walking through classrooms, they have this campus snapshot, this TAP form. Now, the TAP form is not in any way linked to particular school evaluation, teacher, PDAS appraisals. It is information that is stored actually in rack space, stored cumulatively, so that we can get broad trends of instructional practices. Is the curriculum being taught? In what arrangements is it being taught? How is it being implemented? With these broad brushstrokes, we can get trends that can guide our curriculum development and guide how we arrange our professional development. And I'm not going to walk you through all of them. You can look at them at your leisure, but I'll hit a couple of high points so you see what I'm talking about. If you look at the first bar graph, it says classroom setup, and it has rows, pairs, or partners, and groups. So you can see that there were 224 groups observed in the first 9 weeks, 87 classrooms of rows. So if we wanted to see if we had good cooperative learning, collaborative learning in classrooms, that would help us determine, yes, we do. Then when we go on to the teacher location, teaching in the zone. Many of our campuses have studied a book, The Fundamental Five, and the term in the zone means that the teacher's not off behind her desk or somewhere. She's where the action is when she's teaching. She's in the instructional zone. And you can see that 104 instances of that were observed. I want to point out that when it says seated at desk or projector 47, that's an area that we need to work on. I believe when we rolled out the projectors, we didn't roll out professional development about how to teach with a projector. I wasn't here then, but I think that might be the case. So we have some people who teach seated at the projector, and we need to probably put some professional development in place. Moving on to the next page, structured practice, no lesson cycle evident, learning experiences, engage, closure, checking for understanding. You would have to stay in and see, did you see part of the lesson cycle? Did you see a teacher doing a coherent lesson cycle? Now, I have to tell you that when the assistant superintendents go out to campuses, every time they go out, they don't walk through classrooms. They spend some time, depending on what the situation is, coaching principals. We have a number of new principals, and that's one of our projects, is supporting new principals. We have things that will arise on campuses, and they will help and coach a principal through a tough situation, perhaps. We also, from time to time, have campuses that, because of certain circumstances, require more extensive support. For example, last spring, we had a campus, and from mid-February through mid-May, we had an assistant superintendent on that campus every day. Right now, we have a high school in improvement, and that assistant superintendent has begun spending every other week supporting that principal, the teachers, and making sure that we're getting through our TEA improvement plan to do our best to get that school out of improvement. Then in the following week, she's rotating among other campuses. So you can't really just look at, well, how many classroom walkthroughs are they doing? Because some of the heavy lifting, as we call it, is some of that more intensive work that's not how many classrooms did we go into. And that, moving on along, what I'd like to say is that, you know, sometimes you play little games, or people will ask you if you were on an island and you could take 2 or 3 things with you, what would it be? Well, I'd have to take more than 2 or 3. But I'd want to take the leaders that I work with in this district, because they're very innovative, they're very hardworking, and I have to say that I have seen so much more collaboration and teamwork under your leadership, Dr. Dupree. And he didn't pay me to say that. I just thought I'd put that out there. And one of our areas that we're focusing on is a collaborative culture. And I think that he is a collaborative leader, and it starts at the top. So questions?
Well, first let me say thank you, Dr. Hill and Ms. Carabine and Dr. Garcia. That was very, very informative, a lot of information. We could study on this for weeks and weeks and still not grasp it all. But one thing that came through very clearly is your collaboration and your work between yourselves. And the other thing that came through very clearly to me was you have identified where you're up and running and working and where you still need to develop plans. So that was very helpful to see that outline of these are the areas where development still needs to take place. We're developing a plan, or we are in the implementation phase, or we are in the execution phase. So that was very helpful. So I guess I see now which trustees have some questions, and maybe you can entertain some of those questions. Do any trustees have questions for the presenters? Mrs. Tossan, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to reiterate, this was a lot of information in this binder, and thank you guys for working so hard to put it together where it was readable. I'd also like to say how much I appreciate the acknowledgement where there are some areas that need work, because they are areas that we think about, and when we see that, oh, you guys are seeing that and you guys are working on that, those particular areas, it's good for us to see that, and I think it's great for us to see that you guys are working through those those areas of need. A couple of questions I had, and I know I emailed you guys some questions, and so thank you for addressing some of that this evening, and I look forward to, as we progress and get answers to more of those. One of the questions I had, and I really thought about this today, and this may be more of a question for Dr. Dupree, I'm not sure, but when I was looking at the org chart, and you made a comment that we had decided to put GT under the curriculum instruction head, and I noticed that as well. And so one of my questions was, why did we make that switch to putting GT under curriculum instruction, but we didn't make the switch to put special education under curriculum instruction? And I want to say that I fully understand, that it's a federal program, and that you're getting money for services, and that the services are a little bit different in how those are provided and where they come from, and I see that. But the kind of the background for my question is that I see, and you talked about working collaboratively with general education, but one of the things I see is sort of that breakdown because we have the two departments, we have general education and then we have special education. So when it comes to curriculum and instruction in the classroom, I think is where we see that disconnect and sort of an attitude, and I'm not saying it in a negative way, but it just is what it is, and it's, you know, not unique to this district, where you have a group of students that are viewed as not part of this department, as not part of this, you know, not part of general education. And so one of the things as a parent of one of those students that I see one of the ways we could bridge that gap or that barrier is if we pulled at least maybe the curriculum and instructional part of special ed into that CNI group. And so that's sort of the reason for my question and the background for it. And, you know, what are you guys, you know, what is your response to that?
I'll start with a short response, and Christy and Phyllis, you all may want to jump in as well. I think one of the issues we face, and I want to frame this in the right way, is oversight. You know, historically, you've kind of had these departments operating kind of all these directors kind of on one level without, the executive director is a new position in this district. And so we were trying to balance the load. And so we felt like by kind of keeping the federal programs and some of the supporting groups, because if you look at the way RTI is designed to work and feed into SPED, we wanted RTI to be with special education. So you could see all the stair steps to go all the way through, so we could make sure we had a strong alignment between those two divisions. So if we took SPED on one side, then we have to take really RTI as well, and then that means we got one executive director with a whole, you know, 75% of all the programming. So I think what you've said, the point I'm taking away from it is we've got to be more intentional about the idea, because we are, when the CNI folks are writing curriculum, and when they're adding resources, we're still working on this. I know they've done a certain degree of the work, but my expectation is that when they write curriculum, it is modified and it's clear in the curriculum, this is for various levels of special education, this is the regular ed, and this is the GT and advanced level. So any teacher working with any group of students, because as you know, in a typical elementary room, was what I often think of, but even at the high school level, a teacher is writing a lesson plan for a differentiated group of students. And so I think, you know, often we think about the students who are more self-contained or the extremes, but the majority of our students are not at the extremes. They're in the middle, and and we want them to be included with the general ed population as much as possible in the most least restrictive way. So my expectation would be is that any teacher can go to the curriculum documents and be able to have strong support in resources, strategies, and all the things they need by writing that lesson. And so by bridging, and this is where the collaboration is essential, but it's also why we've got one chief academic officer overseeing all of this, including Department of School Leadership. Because if you think about it, even if these two are working together, if the assistant supes are not monitoring for how inclusion is executed, then this is still not going to be as efficient and as effective as it could be. But when we have all three monitoring, then we're able to bring it together in the right way.
So I'm glad to hear you say that as we're writing curriculum now, that we are writing for the, I guess, three basic groups, but really for a differentiating classroom, because I think what we've been seeing is that has not been available. Because, you know, I know just specifically in my own case, we have teachers that are struggling to be able to get, you know, that modified curriculum, and even on the other end, the GT curriculum. So I'm glad to hear that that's where we're going, because I think that is where a lot of the breakdown has been. You guys are well aware that, you know, I've had a lot of conversations about professional development and getting that professional development for our, not just our special education teachers, but I was very glad to hear you say that it's general ed and special ed working side by side, because I think what we're seeing is that a lot of our general ed teachers, it's not that they're not willing, it's that they don't feel equipped, and many times don't feel like the resources are there. So I am very glad to hear that that's where we're going with our curriculum, so that they can pull up those modifications, because there's a lot of breakdown in teachers not knowing how to do that and not having the appropriate professional development and how to handle those situations. So, and I, I understand the rationale there. I mean, I don't think anybody, would downplay the magnitude of special education and RTI and how much has to go into that.
I mean, truly, Ms. Tassan, we've given serious thought, and there was actually an appeal to have an executive director of special education. It's because it is such a significant part of the organization, and we debated resource-wise if that was the best allocation of resources, was to have another high-level leader over that, or if we would gain more traction by keeping it at a director level to make sure we're driving that integration all the way through. Because if you separate it out on its own,
Yeah.
then you're even more likely, I think, to not have the strong alignments and interdependencies that we need. And so I think we've got it at the right level, but it is such a massive part. Any executive director who has that division, because right now, especially until we really get through our developmental review of the program, and I think when we get several years down the road, it's going to be much smoother. But for now, there's a lot of high-level parent engagement, art engagement, all this intensive level of work by central administrative staff. So we felt like we needed an executive director who could oversee that and not have, 6 or 7 other major divisions at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's probably the right choice. My feedback on that would be, of course, that was the reason for my question, is that you don't want to separate it out too much, because then it just really becomes this island unto itself. And, that's part of what we're trying to pull away from, so that the kids do have more access to the general education curriculum, and also, in our life skills and our more segregated classes as well, to have those, more access to curriculum in those classes, is something that I want to be sure that we're doing.
Ms. Tassan, this is another growing area, and we will own it because we were just talking about it recently, that sometimes, because they are special education teachers and there will be professional development offered. Teachers will sometimes gravitate to special education training. And sometimes we need to be more intentional when we have regular education, content-specific professional development in bringing in special education. Because we need to make sure that they're attending regular education training so that they're getting into those curriculum documents, and so that as we, in the next semester, begin to have more professional development and revisit differentiated instruction, we're covering both sides of that coin, the regular ed and the special ed. But I think that we're going to have to be intentional in how we invite, solicit, and provide that.
Well, you just anticipated my next question. So that was gonna be what I was gonna ask, is how are we going, because I know we have to be careful in what we mandate and what we require, but how are we going to basically make that a requirement, not just for sped teachers to get more of that general education type training, so that we make sure that they're have got the access to curriculum going in the segregated environments, but also that the general ed teachers are accessing some of the training on the modifications, accommodations, behavioral supports, and things like that, where they're struggling with all these different learners and these different kids. I mean, the fact that I was glad that you pointed those numbers out, because I actually knew them, and I know that we're heavy in our kids with autism, and you're dealing with a lot of behaviors, and our general educators need that training. So how are we going to be specific in making that either a requirement or something that we encourage strongly for our general educators to do?
I will be honest with you and tell you that's something that we have been recently discussing, and I'm recently moving into this role, but we do realize there's a need, and we're working on that, and I'm not going to provide an answer that I don't have. Okay. But we realize there's that need, and we're addressing it.
And I can interject a little bit as well, because I think if you take your question and kind of escalate it up a couple of levels, what we're really talking about is transforming the way we develop all staff, but especially in this case, teachers, because even if we go to the issue of unbiased delivery of instruction. If a teacher goes, or SPED, you're talking about SPED, I think of our discussions about the unbiased curriculum as well. If a teacher goes to a PD session, they need to get all of those pieces addressed in one sitting. So really, it's almost as if all PD should be for all teachers. So because all of our teachers, and again, we've got the outliers, we've got the most intense, and then we have the least intense, but generally, you're going to capture, if an ELA teacher goes to a training, they're going to need skills and strategies and the knowledge to touch every group of students. And so it does transform the way we deliver that instruction and the content of that instruction. That includes all the different pieces in EG Local, as well as the differentiation. So it may mean in an 8-hour day, you may have to chunk your training differently because you're not going to be able to get the same level of content in, related to the content of the core if you're going to expect teachers to learn things about the differentiation and the unbiased school teaching and all of those things. But that may mean you make it a little more shallow in terms of the content, and they have to get the remainder of the content in another session. But I think it's better equipping them when they can go deeper with all students.
Right. And sometimes the how is as important as the what.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that's critical. So finally, I'm just going to switch gears and go over to the GT side. And explain to me, so I know we're in the process of writing that, and we're going to be evaluating next year our GT programming. The couple of questions I have are first on the elementary school level. How are we serving our kids at the various campuses? Are we writing a singular curriculum that's going to be administered across all elementary school campuses consistently? And how does the Vistas program differ from GT, or does it not, in looking at just elementary school?
Okay, let me attempt to answer that, but I want to go back and add to what you were just talking about professional development. And please know we started something last summer, and it's going to be a reoccurring theme throughout this year. Our departments with federal and special programs and the Department of School Leadership collaborated and determined a top 3. We wanted it to just be a reoccurring theme with all of our principals as well as our classroom teachers. And we said the top 3 this year were to be improving student engagement through effective instructional practices and differentiated instruction. Checking for understanding, we found that to be a deficit. We didn't know were the kids learning what we're attempting to share with them. And finally, meeting the needs of our diverse learners. That was a huge deficit in our audit. And diverse learners includes our English as second language, our bilingual, our special education, GT, at-risk, all sub-pops that fall under diversity. And we've actually already had a couple of sessions for our campus administrators so they can turn this around to their staff. We know how critical it is to move away and embrace the paradigm shift of one-size-fits-all instruction. It's absolutely not going to meet the needs of any of our students, whether general ed or not. So we're moving forward in that path as fast as we can, and especially with SPED. And as you know, with a free and appropriate public education comes providing grade level appropriate curriculum.
Right.
But with that, there's a challenge. So if necessary, we implement IEPs, or we determine modifications or accommodations. So there is a huge challenge, and I personally feel like the deficit has been that we focused so much on compliance for our SPED teachers, they missed out on content knowledge and pedagogy. So by combining forces and our 2 departments meeting continuously and collaborating and creating the plans for addressing this deficit, we are embracing that. And we know that there's not enough time of the day to accomplish this in isolation, so we're going to have to integrate. And we need the best of both worlds. Our general ed teachers need to know these same skills, and they need to know the compliance side of it. But our SPED teachers desperately need the support with content and pedagogy. So just know that's a huge priority for us, and we're addressing it. As far as GT with the curriculum, currently, and this is not that uncommon, but I will be the first to admit this is a deficit. We have the curriculum that's in PCG for all students, and the expectation in the gifted and talented department in this district has been that we would differentiate the process and the pace and the product. So that's all good and fine if they've had appropriate training to do so. To differentiate the process, that's instructional strategies.
Right.
The non-negotiable, according to the state, is that you hold true to these standards and the TEKS objectives. Whether you're gifted or not, you have to meet certain achievement levels on the TEKS. So we put that out there. We've got to do a better job at differentiating the process. And again, going back to one-size-fits-all instruction is not going to meet the needs of our gifted learners. Oftentimes, they're the ones that they're starving for depth and complexity. And sometimes it's not doing more work faster, it's doing less work at a slower pace on a much deeper,
Right.
level. So we're having to back up and retrain our teachers on that. Same thing with the pace. Again, going faster and doing more work and lots of repetition on something they've already mastered only frustrates and turns our students off.
Yeah.
So we know that. So we've got to help our teachers understand that going slower for the most gifted students is just critical. So we're working on that. And then, of course, the product. That goes back to what I referenced with the one-size-fits-all. It's okay for the gifted students to have a different product and to have a different grading practice for them. So those are three big areas that we've got to embrace as we go forward with our professional development and planning for that. What Dr. Dupree said is true. Our curriculum team is now collaborating with the special ed department, the gifted and talented department, our ESL and bilingual department, and we're trying to go into our core content areas in particular and then add different components to that. So if I'm a teacher and in my class I have 10 GT students and 2 ESLs and one facilitated sports special ed student, I should be able to go into PCG and look at the TEKS and find the grade level appropriate curriculum and then drill down to it to see what can I do to differentiate, to add value, and to establish that depth and complexity for my GT students. But at the same time, looking at my SPED students, and it's all individualized, as you know, we have individual education plans, but they have to have the tools and the knowledge to know how to modify or to implement or to make those accommodations, and they have to know that if it's not working, to reconvene in an ARD and make adjustments as necessary. Same things with the ESL. And what we know in curriculum and instruction is all these things that happen for our diverse learners are best practices for general ed also.
Right.
So we're not trying to teach it in isolation. It's what's best for all kids, and it's almost if every student should have an individual education plan. But we're not where we need to be just yet. The good news is that the deficits are very clear to us, and we're working. But I'm not saying that we're going to fix it all right now, because we need that program evaluation to drill down even deeper to make sure that we're not missing anything and to redirect us at that point in time. But just know that help is on the way, and our teachers are asking for it too. They want to do what's best for their students in their classroom, and sometimes they don't know what they don't know. So that's our job, to figure out how to level the playing field, ensure that all of our students meet their fullest potential.
Well, I appreciate that, and I really am glad to hear you say that the product, it's okay for the product to be different, because I think what we see a lot of times in the classrooms is that the teachers, the TEKS, everything's so TEKS driven, and we have to, and I recognize that the TEKS are there, and that's kind of what drives the curriculum. But I think sometimes it gets to be so rigid that it's hard to remember that the product for each child can be different. You can still meet TEKS and still get it through a different process or with a different product, a different outcome for each student. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing how the evaluation comes out next year. I would also be interested in seeing, a study on the Quail Valley Middle School, the Gifted and Talented Academy, since there has been so much success there with a lot of those students, and seeing how we can take those strategies and start using them in the other schools, because I also have one in middle school in GT, and it really is just more work faster, and it does get to be a little bit frustrating, because you would like to see them drill down a little bit. So I appreciate you guys
Thank you.
working on that, and I look forward to it, and thank you for your hard work and for working so much as a team. It's obvious. So.
Thank you.
Well, we know that you're on top of it because you're hitting the very things we're working on with your questions.
Thank you. What other questions? Who else has questions? Mrs. Bailey?
Is this working? Yes. Just a comment. I think you all have really done a great job, since I've been elected to now. I've seen so many positive changes in CNI. And all the work that I'm seeing here, y'all are working really hard. I know people out in the community don't think it unless they're actually here and know what you all are doing. But I appreciate y'all, and I know I'm probably one of your number one. I come and complain, but you guys have really done a good job of organizing, collaborating, staying together. And you know I always have a but. So I have a but. The classroom technology plan, I know Mr. Pham's working on that. That one, to me, is pretty crucial as we get our technology and infrastructure. I think it can help us address a lot of the issues you all are dealing with right now. You know, if we can get those iPads to this group's over here, and this group, and definitely special ed too. So I really look forward to seeing what you can do with that. And that's it. Just thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Bailey. Mr. Burdine?
I didn't have any specific questions. I just wanted to say thank you very much for all your hard work, and I appreciate the presentation. And it was a big learning process for me. I did my best to go through this with all of my abilities, and so thank you for that education. And also love the last slide about teamwork and collaboration. As a board, we're working very hard together along with Dr. Dupree with that. So thank you, and I appreciate your hard work.
Well said, Mr. Burdine. Anything else? Any other questions? Mr. Rosenthal?
Yes, to piggyback off what Mrs. Bailey said, several years ago, sitting in the audience, or when we first started sitting up here, the difference is night and day, so thank you. I do have one question about the Naviance. You said you're having some issues, and what are some of the issues, and also how much counselor resistance are you getting?
It's the human element. It's, I'm not, I don't feel like it's the technology that's the issue, but getting everyone on board and at the same level is where we've run into some issues. We also realize that every high school is different, and every high school has its own needs. I say they have their own DNA, and we need to stop for a minute, take a deep breath, and look at what exactly are the needs there. And one of the examples I used earlier with someone was, we'll have a high school where maybe 80% of the parents have logged on, and another one where 12 parents have logged on. Okay? So sometimes it's our expectations that get us in trouble, and our expectations are that everyone is going to be on board. But like any deployment of any big plan, the selling, the staging, the timing is critical. And we're learning some lessons, and we're working where we have weaker pockets. But it's not the technology. Let me give you an example. A mass email gets sent out to all the parents, 9 through 12 on that campus. Well, no one told us that that would overwhelm the system and bring it down, and we should do like all 9th grade and then do all 10th grade. So it'll send as many as it can, and then nobody else got it, and we don't know why the parents aren't responding. So it's issues like that that we're learning along the way. But again, I feel like it's more the human element right now in getting everyone on board. And I think Steve Shields, our director over College and Career Readiness, is doing an incredible job with Terry Sheneman to work continuously and have meetings and work with them and see where they need to be. Because there is a part for every single person. The registrar has a part, the counselor has a part, the CCR person has a part, and those teachers that are writing letters of recommendation have a part. And we're seeing that some kids are careless. For example, I got like 7 requests to write letters of recommendations for students. I didn't even know them. I said, why am I getting this? What was coming through, they'd go in and click in Naviance. Well, then I found out there's a Garcia teacher, at one of the campuses, so they weren't looking at my first name. So, then they're wondering why the letters didn't go out, and so it's all a learning process. So luckily, I know what needs to take place, so I pick up the phone, I say, do y'all have a Garcia there? Because I think I'm getting her kids' recommendation requests, those kinds of things. But it's just nothing massive, but just time consuming. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think that's something that we all discussed a year ago when we purchased that, was
Yeah.
the parental involvement thing and how to get parents to use it and become involved with their students. So.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. Mr. Rice, do you have a question? You're fingering your microphone as if you might turn it on. Okay, well, I think that says no. Mr. George, how about you?
I also wanted to thank you all for a lot of work, and like Dave Rosenthal said, we are moving in the right direction, and I really appreciate all the effort you made to put it in such a way even I can understand maybe a little bit of it. So you mentioned something in the gifted and talented area, differentiated instruction. Can you explain to me a little bit briefly?
That just means that when you think of it as a loose and tight model, the tight part is the curriculum is set forth by the state. There are state standards and TEKS objectives that all students must learn that are grade level and content specific. And we have some flexibility in the instruction. And times have changed, and our student learners are so different now. So they have different learning styles and different interests. So it's critical that the teachers embrace that with differentiated instruction, and they don't give all the students one-size-fits-all instruction or a lesson. They go into it knowing that they may have students in the room that are auditory learners, that like to learn by listening. They have some that are visual learners that need graphics and demonstration. They have some that need kinesthetic, where they can be more active, involved, and some that are tactile, that need to have manipulatives in their hands. So there's all these different ways to instruct students, and the word differentiate means just to provide different opportunities. But that's challenging. It's a lot easier for the teacher to come into the room and focus on her strengths. Maybe she's good at visual representation. So we have to be careful of that and equip our teachers to be able to embrace all the different learning styles so they can meet the needs of all the different students. And we know research says that certain subpopulations of students especially are gifted and talented, like to learn in different ways, and our special education students have special needs and strengths, and we have to recognize that and differentiate for them. English language learners have particular deficits that we have to embrace and accommodate them. So just equipping the teachers with the ability to differentiate, to take that curriculum and to present it in a variety of ways to ensure that the students are mastering the objectives is the task at hand. And our job is to figure out how to level the playing field and equip the teachers and give them professional development so that they can go in and achieve just that.
And also I wanted to, follow through on Kristen was talking about, the GT Academy and also the curriculum we have in our regular schools. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I heard from teachers, GT qualified teachers, they have a GT class, maybe most of the time only half of the student are GT identified. The rest of them are, fill in. So how do you address that? Because you have a group of two set of students come from so much different way they can learn and things of that nature. That's why I believe many times our regular school GT program doesn't really help our student to accomplish their full potential. So I know it is a tough area where, maybe many times we have no choice. But how do we address that? I mean, can we give teachers more help, or maybe they can take care of both group of students? How do you have any suggestions in that area?
Well, we know we need to improve the professional development, the support that we give them to differentiate that instruction. We also need to use data to drive the decisions, and we have to know the academic ability and interest level of our students, whether they're gifted or not. And it goes back to that one-size-fits-all. You've got to embrace the fact that the process, how they're learning, has to vary for the students, especially the gifted students. You have to embrace the pace. Some students can learn at a faster pace, some need to slow it down, and you have to be okay with that. And then the products, like I stressed earlier, it's okay to have different products and even different grading practices. This is difficult for teachers, though, especially if they have a class of 22, and we do use the cluster model, and you are correct that there could be 10 GT students identified, and then we comprise the rest of the class with what we call fillers, so you could have a vast array of academic abilities and interest level in the classes. So the best way we can support our teachers is with solid curriculum and the resources in PCG, as Dr. Dupree expressed earlier, that we give them the tools, the resources, the training for differentiated instruction, and then ongoing embedded support, modeling and giving them feedback and letting them watch master teachers that have accomplished that.
Okay.
It is difficult, and another piece of the puzzle, I think, is also communicating and educating our parents, because they are not aware maybe of some of the new pedagogy and instructional practices and research behind this, and they draw from their personal experiences. And times have changed, as you know. Our students in the classroom today are completely different from when we were students. And we could sit in a classroom and have one set of instruction and figure it out and be quite successful. But the demands from the state and the TEKS and the level of rigor and all the extra mandates and requirements have made it quite the challenge for our teachers. So my opinion is the best way to support them is through professional development and good curriculum and good instructional resources and just a lot of emphasis on differentiation and helping them to understand how to meet the needs of the process, the product, and the pace.
And next question I have is coming to CCR, expanding AVID, and you said 7 high schools and 5 middle schools. Currently,
AVID.
Did I hear it right?
That was our AVID program.
Currently,
That's how many we have, that's correct.
yeah. But what are the challenges, why we can't expand that to?
Well, we can. It is a costly program. And initially we had a grant through Rice University, and we had a certain number of schools that participated in the program, and we were trying to get data to see how successful we were with it before we came forth with more recommendations, and that's what we're doing, to see how many of the kids actually stay in and how well they do. And our goal right now is, once you have AVID sites, you can become a demonstration district, which means that you have an excellent program, and we're not there yet. We have a great program, but we're trying to get it where it needs to be, a model of excellence, and then work on adding more schools.
Thank you. One last thing I wanted to ask, maybe about Naviance.
Okay,
David Rosendahl
sure.
mentioned, and I think you mentioned 8,000 logins.
Mm-hmm.
Is that fair to say somewhere we have between middle school and high school, maybe around 35 plus, maybe close to 40,000 students, maybe? Is that
Right. Mm-hmm.
So out of that 8,000 logins, and I notice when I go out and
I think I said 80,000.
80?
80.
80.
80. 80.
Okay, 80, okay. So one thing I noticed is, I'm not trying to be negative, but all across, when I talk to some students, some teachers, some principals, they are all over it. And some kids never even heard of it. And, so even, of course, I know that you all are doing a phenomenal job in trying to send that little card and all home and trying to encourage parents to get involved. But, really, you already mentioned, I believe, the challenges. It's just...
Well, we do look at the data. We get it once a month, and to see how many kids have accessed it and how many parents, how long they stay on it. So we are looking at that data and then having meetings with the principal and the CCR advisor regarding that. For example, I use the example of the 12 parents. And the first thing I said was, I want the CCR advisor to get on the phone and make personal calls to these parents, because they are our neediest parents, and explain the value of it and invite them to come into the center and So we have to use a different method depending on, like I said, the DNA of the campus, kind of thing.
Thank you. I really appreciate all the work you're doing, and I thank you for all the great work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Well, I have a question. Naviance, I thought we were going to use that to track student curriculum and everything, to make sure that when they were ready to graduate, they really were ready to graduate. And in the past, we had a few that weren't ready to graduate, and we lost track of it. But aren't we using Naviance for that as well?
For 4-year plans, for the kids to develop their 4-year plans at the end of the.
But are we
and then
using
update.
Naviance for that? That's my question.
Yes, we are going to use that, but the first thing we had to do
We're
was.
not using it yet? You say we're going to use it?
For this spring, for them to develop their 4-year plans. They develop their 4-year plans in the spring as they do course selection. We're not using it like this month, but we will be using it to pre-register our students for next
Okay.
year.
Have we invited parents to PTO or PTA meetings, or are we explaining the importance of Naviance when school starts and they have those meetings in the auditoriums and things like that? Do we have handouts that are going with the kids home?
Well, we've actually developed a letter that went out to all our parents, middle school and high school parents, regarding Naviance, but we still, like I said, have some work to do in terms of getting the parents involved at the course selection open night, and where they can go and look at the 4-year plans.
What's our goal with Naviance by the end of this year, by the end of this school year in May? What's our goal in terms of getting the parents engaged and the students?
The parents and the students, well, first it has, I think once the students start taking the career assessment modules and they get the results of their career interest survey, and they go to the parents can also see them on Naviance. I think that'll spike some interest in that. When students start putting their 4-year plans online and the parents can access them and look at them, and I think that would be something that will, when they start seeing more than just kids surfing the net in Naviance, actually personalizing it to their career pathways and those kinds of things, I think we'll get more interest.
Okay, so by May, you think all of our kids will have been engaged by then?
Yes, because all the middle schools, the expectation is every student will go in there and do a career assessment, 6th, 7th, and 8th. And then, of course, high school, we're using it as well in that area, but mostly for college searches and for their 4-year planning.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Any other questions?
I just had
Mrs.
one
Tosin?
follow-up with the Naviance. So how are we supporting our special populations, I guess at the middle and high school, we don't have as many English language learners, but how are we supporting the special education population and those parents in getting logged in and getting our kids through Naviance?
Well, all our parents receive the same information, and we did hold 6 Naviance nights where parents could come get their logins. We also send out letters, so we don't separate it by even ELL or special ed. It's open to everyone and assistance to everyone. Now, our special education teachers can also bring groups of students, if that's what they have in their classroom, to the CCR center and put them on the computer. The CCR advisor also goes out to classes and does classroom presentations. So if you're asking about how we support all our parents get as much support as they need. So
I guess, so the reason I'm asking the question is because I think that our parents of special education students probably need a little more guidance because, so I'm a pretty involved parent, and I've been to the Naviance night, and my daughter's not going to come home and give me information and not really probably going to sit down with me and log in. And so since we are learning this as a new system, it's not something we've done before. It might be helpful when we're looking at CCR and that we get our counselors to specifically engage not just the students, but the parents of special education students and show them how Naviance can work for them. Because I think one of the things I asked when Naviance was presented is, or I may just have asked Dr. Dupree this, I don't remember, but, are colleges and college programs and certifications for kids with intellectual disabilities and other disabilities included? And the answer was they are. And so it may benefit that population of students and parents to have a little more guidance in that. And as we're planning, and we're already doing transition planning, how can Naviance be, used in the transition planning and in course selection? And because I'll tell you, I myself am even a little blind in trying to figure out what path is she going to take, and how does this relate to Naviance? I mean, it's hard enough with a typical student, but
Sure. And I can also tell you that every one of our transition specialists went through all the training that our CCR advisors went through.
Okay.
And they're also on our advisory committee that we have with Ann Howard and with Mr. Long. So they wanted to see the forms and what they could do, so when they do have those transition meetings and plan ahead, they could actually bring the kids in and put them through some of the assessments and those kinds of things. So, but yes, I mean, we still have work to be done. You can also go in there and put in some filters as to the kind of college you're looking for colleges that offer programs for students that are gifted, or students that have learning disabilities. And, we were talking the other day about University of Missouri that we've had lots of great success with, so there's ways to do that, to do those searches as well. And if the parents need support on exactly how to do that, that's what our CCR advisors are there for, and the counselors.
Yeah, so that's just a suggestion as you're talking through it with them. I know you said you have that one campus that has 12, and if you obviously have a special ed population as there as well, then you're going to have a population of students that are really going to need heavy support probably at those campuses. So, in getting the CCR advisors and counselors engaged, it would be a suggestion. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Hill and Mrs. Carabine and Dr. Garcia for a very informative report. And we have a lot more to study, and so you hopefully be patient with us as we send you emails with some more questions and things that pop into our minds in the middle of the night. And we thank you very much for all your work in putting this together for us and then presenting it to us so clearly and systematically so we could really grasp what's going on in your department. We appreciate that very much. So thank you.
Thank you. And before we leave, could I just acknowledge all the directors that came
Absolutely.
tonight?
I think they need to stand up.
Directors and Department of
I
School
see them.
Leadership, they're the
Stand up.
backbone of all of the work.
Assistant superintendents, please
Stand
stand. Coordinators, you stand too.
There we are. Mrs. Harvey.
With 72,000 students, we absolutely could not have made the progress that we've made or do the work that's forthcoming without the backbone of the district here. So we appreciate them so much, and we work so closely together, all among the departments. We just feel very fortunate right now. We're in a really good place. So thank you for your
Absolutely.
support.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, and thanks to all of you, and thanks for being here tonight and presenting all of this to us. The board will now convene in closed section under the Texas Open Meetings Act for purpose of a private consultation with the board's attorney on any or all subjects or matters authorized by law, as well as personnel matters. The board is now convened in closed session.